Hi! Welcome to this part of my review featuring the Goblin Slayer TRPG. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review featuring this role-playing game based on the popular fantasy series, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time I am going to talk about mounted combat, minions, and bosses. But before we continue, I would like to talk about this channel's sponsor, Heroes and Hardships. This is a universal RPG system, allowing you to play any sort of genre, campaign, story, theme. You can also create any sort of character imaginable. You have hundreds of tools to accomplish that. I'm going to put links in the description that will take you to the Kickstarter that is going to begin this October 4th. You will also find links to the website, to the Tetsubo section of the website. Tetsubo is an upcoming setting inspired by Japan's Sengoku era. You are going to find links to the Discord, to my reviews of the Quick Start Guide, the Wallace campaign setting based on the life and exploits of William Wallace, and you are also going to find my ongoing review of the core rulebook in its early access version. So please check it out. Now let's continue. Concerning mounted combat, when fighting while riding on a horse, whether a normal one or a military steed, you use the movement speed of the creature your character is riding in place of your character's movement speed. In addition, while riding, any bonus based on your character's class level used for calculating checks and damage on all actions has a limit of 1. This is called the riding restriction. This restriction can be removed by acquiring the riding skill and advancing it. However, a character can still use any skill they've acquired, even ones with a prerequisite, such as having to be at least fighter level 7, because this prerequisite is only a restriction at the time of acquiring the skill. If a character falls prone while riding a creature, they fall off that creature. When they fall off, assuming they fall from a height of 3 meters, they take 2d6 points of falling damage. Let's talk about bosses and minions. Monsters fall into one of two roles, bosses and minions. Bosses are of course the chief leaders of minions. This makes them stronger, obviously. When you want to have a boss appear in combat, a good rule is to use the average level among player characters, +2 as the boss's level. Try to keep it to a single boss or two at most. Additionally, each boss should have a number of minions equal to the number of player characters. Minions are the true strength of a boss. At the beginning of combat, the Game Master points out to the players which monster or monsters on the battlefield have the special ability of boss or leadership. However, if necessary, the Game Master needs not make every monster with the boss or leadership ability a boss, instead having those monsters appear as minions. That is, maybe you just want a stronger representation of a minion. An adventure will generally have only one battle containing a boss. All other battles should only use minions. However, if the Game Master wants the player characters to have a tough adventure, they could potentially have a boss appear in more than one battle, or have 2 or more show up in a single one. If the Game Master decides to do this, they should take the utmost care to adjust the number of monsters, their strength, and the battlefield conditions in order to give the player characters a chance of winning, even if they do have to fight tooth and nail to get there. Now, when it comes to boss combat actions, bosses don't use any fixed scores for hit checks, dodge checks, block checks, spell use checks, or spell resistance checks. Instead, simply rolling 2d6. Because of this, not only will their check scores change from one check to the next, but they'll also have a chance to roll a critical success or critical failure. Now, bosses possess the special ability Leadership. They cannot command more minions than their leadership ability specifies. The minions the boss leads must all be equal to or less than half the boss's level. The Game Master should decide what kind of boss to use and what sort of minions they command. Unless there's a reason to do otherwise, the boss should be accompanied by their minions at the beginning of combat. Any minion led by a boss will take their action as though they possess the same initiative as the boss. the Game Master can freely decide what order the boss and minions should act in. When a boss is defeated, the minions of that defeated boss will all become leaderless until another boss takes leadership of them again. Bosses can spend a free action on their turn to take leadership of several new minions. However, the number of minions they lead can never be higher than their leadership. They also cannot take leadership of any minions who are higher than half of their own level. Now, when it comes to gaining support effects from minions, as a free action, the boss can receive support effects possessed by the minions they lead. When the boss receives support effects, that minion is treated as if they've already used the main action. Thus, the boss cannot receive support effects from a minion who has already acted. If a minion providing a boss with support effect dies, becomes disabled due to the effects of spells or the like, or becomes forced to attack with the provoke skill, the boss instantly loses the support effects from that minion. The minion providing the support effect needs to spend their main action on it. As a general rule, bosses are not under any support effects at the beginning of combat. However, if the Game Master decides that the enemy has already noticed the player characters and prepared themselves for combat, they may start the battle with support effects already granted to the boss. In these cases, the Game Master should make sure to warn the player characters that the enemy has already prepared themselves for combat. As a general rule, bosses will never flee. However, the Game Master may decide to have one attempt to flee. Whatever the case is, the boss doesn't make any morale checks. Let's talk about minions. Minions are the common rank and file soldiers. When having them appear on the battlefield, using about the same level as the player character adventurers for the minion is usually appropriate. They can be a lower level too, if a boss is leading them. No matter how low a minion's level, they can still provide support effects to the boss, so they will still be a threat to the player characters. Try and limit the number of minions who appear to a value somewhere between the number of player characters and twice that number. Minions use fixed scores for their hit checks, dodge checks, block checks, spell use checks, and spell resistance checks, so they don't roll 2d6. The Game Master should still roll the dice for checks other than those, such as initiative and when you need to find a total check score from monster intelligence, using whatever method is defined. Minions being led by a boss have an initiative equal to the boss's. When this happens, the Game Master decides freely what order the boss and the minions should act in. Minions not being led by any boss move in accordance with their regular initiative. Minions possess support effects. When a boss uses a free action to gain one, the minion they gained the effect from is treated as already having used their main action. Support effects grant many bonuses, such as adding to initiative, hit checks, power, dodge checks, block checks, armor score, spell use checks, spell resistance checks, and other special abilities. Some minions might have even more unique support effects. When multiple minions have granted a single boss their support effect, all the support effects are added together. Any minion who is no longer led by a boss must make a morale check at the end of each round. Minions may flee as a result. The Game Master should decide if and how any escaped minions will be involved with future developments in the adventure. Each individual minion not led by a boss makes their own morale check to see if they escape. I like it that at the end of this section, you have a complete combat example. So if something wasn't very clear, this is going to help you understand combat better. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part, we are going to talk about spells. I like the simple mounted combat rules, and the rules used for bosses and minions are quite streamlined. They are going to make the combat process flow quite smoothly. I also like it how you can optionally use bosses as stronger minions. Sometimes you don't need a leader for a certain fight, you just want a big, tough enemy to present some challenges for the player characters. Thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.